Racist Karen humiliates black lawyer in a restaurant. What happens next is shocking. Amara Ellis sat alone at a corner table in the upscale restaurant, the soft hum of conversation surrounding her like a warm embrace. The dim lighting cast a golden hue over the polished wood and elegant decor, creating an atmosphere that felt both intimate and sophisticated. She had chosen this place to celebrate a recent legal victory, a hard-fought case that had taken months of her life and energy. As a black woman in a predominantly white profession, each success felt like a small triumph against the odds stacked against her. Amara took a sip of her red wine, savoring the rich flavor as she reflected on her journey. She had worked tirelessly to earn her place at the prestigious law firm, navigating the complexities of a system that often felt rigged against her. The weight of her ancestors' struggles pressed on her shoulders, reminding her of the importance of her work. She was determined to make a difference, to fight for justice in a world that often turned a blind eye. Just as she was about to take another sip, the restaurant door swung open, and a gust of cold air swept through the room. Amara glanced up, her gaze landing on a woman who had just entered. Karen Matthews, a wealthy white woman known for her entitlement and sharp tongue, strode in with an air of confidence that demanded attention. Her designer handbag swung at her side, and her laughter echoed through the restaurant, drawing the eyes of patrons. Amara's stomach twisted at the sight of Karen. She had encountered her before, at charity events, legal conferences, and even in courtrooms. Karen had a knack for making her presence known, often at the expense of others. Amara had always managed to avoid direct confrontation with her, but today felt different. As Karen scanned the room, her gaze landed on Amara, and a smirk spread across her face. "Oh, look, it's the lawyer who thinks she can change the world," Karen called out, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The laughter of her companions echoed in response, and Amara felt the heat rise to her cheeks. The restaurant fell silent, all eyes now on Amara. She could feel the weight of their stares, the judgment hanging in the air like a thick fog. Should she ignore the taunts, or should she confront Karen directly? The dilemma churned in her mind, and for a moment she felt paralyzed. Amara took a deep breath, reminding herself of the countless battles she had fought to get to this point. She had faced down judges, opposing counsel, and even her own insecurities. This was just another challenge, another opportunity to stand her ground. The weight of her ancestors' struggles pressed on her shoulders, urging her to rise above the humiliation. "Karen," Amara said, her voice steady as she stood up, "I think it's time you learned some respect." The words felt powerful as they left her lips, a declaration of her refusal to be belittled. Karen's smirk faltered for a moment, surprise flickering in her eyes. "Respect? From you?" she scoffed, crossing her arms. "What do you know about respect? You're just a token in a suit." The words stung, but Amara refused to let them break her. "I know more about respect than you'll ever understand. I've worked hard to earn my place here, and I won't let you diminish that." The tension in the room escalated as patrons leaned in, eager to witness the unfolding drama. Amara could feel the eyes of the restaurant on her, the weight of their expectations pressing down. She had made her decision. She would not back down. Karen stepped closer, her voice low and mocking. "You think you're so special, don't you? Just because you have a fancy title doesn't mean you're better than anyone else. You're just another overhyped lawyer trying to make a name for yourself." Amara's heart raced, but she stood her ground. "I'm not trying to be better than anyone. I'm trying to make a difference. You wouldn't understand that, would you? The words hung in the air, and for a moment, the restaurant was silent. Then, a murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Amara felt a surge of support. She had taken a stand, and it felt empowering. Karen's expression darkened, her facade of confidence cracking. You think this is over? You have no idea who you're dealing with, she spat, her voice dripping with venom. Amara's pulse quickened as she realized the stakes were higher than she had anticipated. This wasn't just a confrontation. It was a battle for her dignity, her reputation, and her place in a world that often sought to undermine her. Maybe it's time you learned that your privilege doesn't give you the right to belittle others, Amara shot back, her voice rising with conviction. I won't be silenced by your ignorance. The tension in the room reached a boiling point as patrons began to murmur, some nodding in agreement with Amara. She could feel the tide turning, the support of those around her bolstering her resolve. This was her moment, and she would not let it slip away. Karen's face flushed with anger, and she took a step back, her bravado faltering. You'll regret this, she hissed, her voice low and threatening. I have connections, and I won't let you ruin my reputation. Amara felt a chill run down her spine, but she refused to show fear. You can't intimidate me, Karen. I've faced worse than you, and I'm still standing. With that, Amara turned on her heel and walked away, leaving Karen fuming in her wake. The restaurant buzzed with conversation as patrons began to discuss the confrontation, some expressing support for Amara, while others whispered about Karen's outburst. As Amara stepped outside, the cool evening air hit her like a wave, and she took a moment to collect her thoughts. Her heart raced, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had stood up for herself, but the confrontation had only just begun. The world outside felt different now, charged with possibility and uncertainty. Amara knew that the fallout from this incident would be significant. She could already imagine the headlines, the social media posts, and the conversations that would unfold in the days to come. But she also felt a sense of empowerment, a realization that she had the strength to confront the challenges ahead. As she walked away from the restaurant, Amara felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the knowledge that she was not alone in this fight. The battle for justice was far from over, but she was determined to make her voice heard. The restaurant buzzed with murmurs as Amara stood her ground, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, the eyes of the patrons boring into her back. Karen Matthews, with her perfectly coiffed hair and designer outfit, was not just a woman. She was a symbol of the privilege and entitlement that Amara had fought against her entire career. Do you really think you can just shout me down? Karen sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. You're just making a fool of yourself. Amara clenched her fists, feeling the heat rise in her cheeks. I'm not making a fool of myself. I'm standing up for what's right. You can't belittle me or anyone else just because you think you're better. Karen's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Amara saw a flicker of uncertainty, but it was quickly replaced by a cold, calculating glare. You think this is about you? This is about me protecting my reputation. You're just a blip on my radar. The words stung, but Amara refused to let them break her. You're right. This isn't just about me. It's about everyone who has ever been marginalized by people like you. You don't get to decide who deserves respect. The tension in the room thickened, and Amara could feel the energy shifting. Some patrons began to nod in agreement, while others looked on with a mix of shock and curiosity. She had taken a stand, and it felt empowering, but she also knew the risks involved. "Do you really think anyone cares about your sob story?" Karen shot back, her voice rising. "You're just playing the victim card because you can't handle the truth." Amara took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. "I'm not playing the victim. I'm speaking the truth. You're the one who's afraid of losing your status, and that's why you lash out." Karen's face flushed with anger, and she stepped closer, invading Amara's personal space. "You have no idea what I've worked for. You think you can just waltz in here and ruin my night? You're pathetic." "Pathetic is hiding behind your privilege," Amara replied, her voice steady. "You're afraid of being challenged, and that's why you resort to insults. But I won't back down." The restaurant was now fully engaged, the atmosphere electric with anticipation. Amara could feel the eyes of the patrons on her, and she knew she had to keep pushing forward. This was more than just a personal confrontation. It was a moment that could resonate beyond these walls. "Let's be real," Karen said, her tone dripping with condescension. "You're just a lawyer trying to make a name for yourself. You think this little scene is going to change anything? You're delusional." Amara's heart raced, but she refused to let Karen's words shake her. "I'm not trying to change the world in one night, but I am trying to make a difference. Every voice matters, and I won't let you silence mine." With that, Amara turned to the other patrons, her voice rising above the din. "This isn't just about me. It's about all of us. We need to stand up against racism and entitlement wherever we see it. We can't let people like Karen dictate our worth." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Amara felt a surge of hope. She was no longer alone in this fight. She had the support of those around her. The tide was turning, and she could feel the momentum shifting in her favor. Karen's expression darkened, and she took a step back, her bravado faltering. "You'll regret this," she hissed, her voice low and threatening. "I have connections, and I won't let you ruin my reputation." Amara felt a chill run down her spine, but she refused to show fear. "You can't intimidate me, Karen. I've faced worse than you, and I'm still standing." With that, Amara turned on her heel and walked away, leaving Karen fuming in her wake. The restaurant buzzed with conversation as patrons began to discuss the confrontation, some expressing support for Amara, while others whispered about Karen's outburst. As Amara stepped outside, the cool evening air hit her like a wave, and she took a moment to collect her thoughts. Her heart raced, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had stood up for herself, but the confrontation had only just begun. The world outside felt different now, charged with possibility and uncertainty. Amara knew that the fallout from this incident would be significant. She could already imagine the headlines, the social media posts, and the conversations that would unfold in the days to come. But she also felt a sense of empowerment, a realization that she had the strength to confront the challenges ahead. As she walked away from the restaurant, Amara felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the knowledge that she was not alone in this fight. The battle for justice was far from over, but she was determined to make her voice heard. The next morning, Amara woke to the sound of her phone buzzing incessantly on the nightstand. She groaned, rubbing her eyes as she reached for it, still feeling the adrenaline from the previous night's confrontation. As she unlocked her phone, her heart sank. The video of her exchange with Karen had gone viral overnight, and her notifications were flooded with comments, shares, and messages. Some were supportive, praising her courage and strength, while others were harsh and derogatory, attacking her character and questioning her professionalism. Amara felt a mix of emotions. Pride for standing up for herself, but also anxiety about the backlash she was facing. She quickly scrolled through the comments, her heart racing as she read the vitriol directed at her. "Just another angry black woman," one comment read. "She should know her place," another chimed in. Amara's stomach twisted at the familiar sting of racism, but she refused to let it deter her. Taking a deep breath, Amara reminded herself of her purpose. She had fought too hard to let the opinions of strangers define her. She was a lawyer, an advocate for justice, and she would not be silenced. After a quick shower and a strong cup of coffee, Amara decided to address the situation head-on. She pulled out her laptop and began drafting a statement for her social media accounts. She wanted to clarify her stance, to remind people that her fight was not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever faced discrimination. As she typed, her fingers flew across the keyboard, fueled by a mix of anger and determination. "I will not be silenced," she wrote. "I will not allow anyone to diminish my worth or the worth of those who stand with me. This fight is about more than just one incident. It's about the systemic racism that permeates our society." Once she finished, Amara took a moment to review her words. They felt powerful, a declaration of her commitment to justice. She hit post and watched as the words went live, her heart racing with anticipation. Almost immediately, the comments began to pour in again. This time, however, they were different. Supporters rallied around her, sharing their own experiences and expressing solidarity. "We stand with you, Amara," one comment read. "Your voice matters," another chimed in. Amara felt a swell of gratitude as she read through the messages. She was not alone in this fight. She had a community behind her, ready to support her as she navigated the challenges ahead. As the day progressed, Amara received a call from her law firm. Her heart raced as she answered, unsure of what to expect. "Amara, we need to talk about the incident last night," her boss said, his tone serious. "Is it about the video?" Amara asked, bracing herself for the worst. "Yes, and we're concerned about the potential backlash," he replied. "We want to ensure that you're protected and that our firm's reputation remains intact." Amara felt a surge of frustration. "I stood up for myself and for what's right. I won't apologize for that." "I understand, but we need to navigate this carefully," her boss said. "We're considering a public statement to address the situation." Amara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the conversation. "I appreciate that, but I want to be involved in crafting that statement. This is my fight, and I won't let anyone speak for me." "Of course," her boss replied, a hint of respect in his voice. "Let's set up a meeting to discuss how we can move forward." As they hung up, Amara felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was ready to face whatever came next, armed with the knowledge that she was not alone in this fight. The battle for justice was far from over, but she was determined to make her voice heard. The following days after the confrontation at the restaurant felt like a whirlwind for Amara Ellis. Social media buzzed with her name. The video of her exchange with Karen Matthews circulating widely, igniting debates and discussions that stretched far beyond the confines of the restaurant. Amara had expected backlash, but she hadn't anticipated the sheer volume of support that flooded in. Her phone buzzed incessantly with notifications from friends, colleagues, and even strangers who had shared her experience. The hashtags, #StandWithAmara and #JusticeForAmara, trended on various platforms, drawing attention to systemic racism and the need for accountability. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. Amara sat at her desk in her home office, reviewing the comments that filled her social media feeds. A mix of pride and anxiety coursed through her as she read through the supportive messages. "You're an inspiration," one person wrote. "Thank you for speaking up," echoed another. But amidst the encouragement, the trolls were relentless. "Just another angry black woman," one comment read, and another suggested that she should know her place. With each derogatory remark, Amara felt the familiar sting of anger rise within her. The fight wasn't just about her. It was about everyone who faced discrimination. She took a deep breath and reminded herself of her purpose. She would not be silenced. Later that afternoon, she attended a meeting at her law firm, a gathering that had been set up in response to the incident. The boardroom was filled with her colleagues, some of whom had supported her from the beginning, and others who seemed more concerned with the firm's public image than with the principles she stood for. "Thank you for coming, everyone," her boss, Mr. Henderson, began, his voice steady but cautious. "We're here to discuss the implications of the incident at the restaurant and how we can best support Amara moving forward." Amara sat at the table, her heart pounding. She was determined to assert her voice during this meeting. "I appreciate everyone's support," she said, glancing around the room at her colleagues. "But I want to make it clear that this is about more than just me. It's about addressing systemic racism and the impact it has on our community." Several heads nodded in agreement, but she could see some faces tightening, discomfort creeping into the atmosphere. "We understand that," Mr. Henderson replied. "But we also need to protect the firm's reputation. There are clients who might reconsider their relationships with us based on this incident." Amara felt her stomach knot. "So you're saying that we prioritize the firm's image over advocating for justice? That's not the message we should be sending." A murmur of unease spread around the table, and Amara's pulse quickened. "This is an opportunity for us to stand up and be counted. We can be a voice for those who have been marginalized. We shouldn't shy away from that responsibility." "Amara, we're not suggesting you shy away from speaking out," another attorney, Lisa, interjected. "But we need to be strategic about how we present ourselves publicly. The backlash could affect all of us." "Being strategic shouldn't mean compromising our integrity," Amara countered, her voice firm. "If we don't take a stand now, we're only allowing the cycle of racism to continue. We have a chance to make a real difference." Mr. Henderson cleared his throat, looking uneasy. "We'll draft a statement that includes support for you and addresses the broader issues at hand. But we must also be careful with our wording. We have clients to consider." Amara felt a mixture of frustration and determination. "I understand that, but I want to ensure that the statement is authentic. It should reflect the commitment to justice and equality that we claim to uphold." The tension in the room was palpable, but Amara refused to back down. She had come too far to allow her voice to be muted. "I'm willing to work with you on it, but I need to be involved in crafting the message. This is my story, and I won't let anyone else tell it for me." The meeting continued, and while they discussed various strategies, Amara felt a sense of resolve building within her. She would not allow her voice to be drowned out, nor would she let the firm's concerns overshadow the critical issues at stake. As the meeting concluded, several colleagues approached her, expressing their support. Lisa, in particular, pulled Amara aside. "I admire your courage, Amara," she said, her voice low. "This isn't easy, but you're doing the right thing." "Thank you, Lisa. I just wish more people would see that," Amara replied, her heart swelling with gratitude. Afterward, Amara returned home, feeling both exhausted and invigorated. The fight was far from over, but she was determined to keep pushing forward. That evening, she decided to draft a more extensive post for her social media. outlining her thoughts on the incident and the importance of addressing racism directly. As she typed, her thoughts flowed freely. Racism is not just a personal affront. It is a systemic issue that affects all of us. We must confront it head-on, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. She poured her heart into the words, determined to make them resonate. Once she finished, Amara hit post, her heart racing as she watched the message go live. Within moments, notifications flooded in. The support continued to grow, and she felt a sense of community rallying behind her. The next morning brought a new wave of attention. Amara woke to find her phone buzzing with alerts, and as she scrolled through her notifications, she noticed a message from a prominent news outlet requesting an interview. Her heart raced with excitement and anxiety. This could be an opportunity to amplify her voice and spread her message further. After confirming the interview, Amara spent the day preparing, researching topics, and compiling her thoughts. She wanted to ensure that she conveyed her message clearly and effectively. When the time for the interview finally arrived, she sat in front of the camera, her nerves buzzing beneath the surface. The interviewer, a well-known journalist, greeted her with a warm smile. "Thank you for joining us today, Amara. Your story has resonated with so many people. Can you share your experience from the restaurant incident?" Amara took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. "Thank you for having me. The incident at the restaurant was a pivotal moment for me. I've faced racism throughout my career, but this time, it was different. I realized that I couldn't remain silent in the face of such blatant ignorance." As she spoke, Amara felt a sense of empowerment wash over her. The camera captured her passion, her commitment to justice shining through. She articulated the need for solidarity and the importance of standing up against racism, urging others to use their voices for change. The interview continued, and Amara found herself sharing personal anecdotes, recounting moments in her life where she had been confronted with prejudice. With each story, she felt a weight lifting off her shoulders, a cathartic release that came from speaking her truth. When the interview concluded, the journalist thanked her for her time, and Amara walked away feeling invigorated. The opportunity to share her story had been a powerful experience, and she hoped it would inspire others to stand up against discrimination. As the days went on, the interview aired, and once again, Amara's story took center stage in the media. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with many praising her for her courage and resilience. But as the attention grew, so did the scrutiny, and Amara knew that the battle was far from over. Karen Matthews, feeling the pressure of the backlash, had begun to respond as well. She released a statement attempting to downplay the incident, but Amara could sense the underlying bitterness in her words. Karen was not backing down, and Amara knew that she would have to prepare for whatever came next. The tension mounted as Amara continued to navigate the complexities of her newfound visibility. She received messages of support from various organizations and individuals, but also threats and derogatory comments from those who disagreed with her stance. The fight had taken on a life of its own, and Amara was determined not to let it consume her. That evening, as she sat in her living room reflecting on the whirlwind of events, Amara felt a mixture of emotions: pride in her resilience, anxiety about the future, and determination to continue fighting for justice. She knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but she was ready to face the challenges. She picked up her phone, scrolling through the endless stream of notifications. Amidst the chaos, she saw a message from a local civil rights organization inviting her to speak at an upcoming rally. The opportunity filled her with hope and purpose. This was her chance to amplify her message further, to reach a community eager for change. With a renewed sense of determination, Amara accepted the invitation, ready to share her story and stand alongside others who were fighting for justice. The battle against racism was far from over, but she was prepared to face it head-on. As the days passed, the anticipation of the upcoming rally began to build in Amara's chest, a steady drumbeat of purpose that drowned out the noise of doubt. She meticulously prepared her speech, pouring her heart into each word. She felt a responsibility, not just to herself, but to everyone who had ever faced racism and discrimination. This was her chance to amplify their voices as well. On the day of the rally, Amara arrived at the park early, the crisp morning air invigorating her spirit. Banners waved in the gentle breeze. Colorful signs bearing messages of solidarity and justice dotted the landscape, and groups of people began to gather, exchanging words of encouragement and support. The energy was electric, a palpable sense of unity that made her heart swell. Amara spotted Lisa among the crowd, waving her over. "You're going to crush it today," Lisa exclaimed, wrapping her arms around Amara in a warm hug. "I've seen the support you've received online. It's incredible what you've started here." "Thanks, Lisa. I just hope I can do justice to the message," Amara replied, her nerves bubbling just beneath the surface. "You've got this." "Just remember, you're not alone," Lisa said, her eyes shining with encouragement. "We're all here for you." As the crowd continued to grow, Amara took a moment to breathe deeply, grounding herself in the moment. She glanced around, taking in the sea of faces, young and old, black and white, all united for a common cause. This was what it meant to stand together, to fight for justice, and she felt a renewed determination swell within her. When it was time for her to speak, Amara stepped up to the makeshift stage, the sun shining down on her, illuminating the faces of those gathered before her. The cheers and applause from the crowd amplified her courage, and she took a deep breath, adjusting the microphone in front of her. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice steady. "We stand together not just for ourselves, but for those who have fought before us and those who will fight after us. We stand for justice, for equality, and for the right to be heard." The crowd erupted in applause, and Amara felt a rush of adrenaline. She continued, pouring her passion into every word. Racism is not just a personal affront. It is a systemic issue that affects every aspect of our lives. We cannot afford to remain silent in the face of hatred and ignorance. We must confront it head on. As she spoke, she shared her experiences, recounting the confrontation with Karen at the restaurant and the subsequent fallout. She addressed the hurtful comments she had received online, but framed them as a reminder of the work that still needed to be done. For every hateful comment, there are 10 voices of support. Together, we can drown out the negativity and create a world where everyone is treated with respect. Amara's words resonated with the crowd, and she could see people nodding in agreement, their faces reflecting determination and solidarity. She urged them to take action, to use their voices and their privilege to advocate for change. Let's not just talk about justice. Let's demand it. Let's create spaces where everyone feels safe and valued. The energy in the park surged, and the crowd responded with cheers and chants. In that moment, Amara felt a profound sense of unity, an understanding that they were all in this together. She was no longer just fighting for herself. She was part of a larger movement, a collective force for change. As the rally continued, Amara felt empowered. She listened to other speakers share their stories, each voice adding to the tapestry of experiences that united them in their mission. The atmosphere was charged with hope, and Amara realized that this was just the beginning. However, as the rally came to an end, Amara noticed a familiar figure in the distance, Karen Matthews, standing at the edge of the crowd, her expression a mix of anger and disdain. Amara's heart sank as she locked eyes with her. Karen's presence was a stark reminder that the battle was far from over. After the rally concluded, Amara was surrounded by supporters who congratulated her on her speech, but she couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled in her stomach. She spotted Lisa again, who was chatting excitedly with a group of attendees. "Did you see Karen?" Amara asked, her voice low. "Yeah, I did. What's she doing here?" Lisa replied, her brows furrowed in concern. "We should probably be careful." "I'm not going to let her intimidate me," Amara said, her voice firm. "I have to keep pushing forward." As the crowd began to disperse, Amara felt a mix of determination and anxiety. She knew that Karen would likely respond to the rally in some way, and it wouldn't be positive. The backlash she'd received online had already shown her that not everyone was on her side. That evening, Amara returned home, her mind racing with thoughts of the day's events. After a quick dinner, she settled in front of her laptop to review social media updates. The rally had garnered significant attention, and the comments were pouring in. Some were overwhelmingly positive, praising her bravery and calling for continued action. Others, however, were laced with hostility. "Just another angry black lawyer trying to stir up trouble," one comment read. "Why can't you just accept that some people are better than you?" another added. Amara's heart sank as she read through the negative comments, but she refused to let them define her. She had faced adversity before, and this was just another battle in the ongoing fight for justice. With renewed resolve, she decided to respond. "Thank you to everyone who attended today's rally and who has supported the fight for justice," she typed. "For those who disagree, I encourage you to listen and reflect on your own beliefs. Change starts with understanding, and I will continue to advocate for equity until we achieve it." After clicking post, Amara felt a sense of relief. She had chosen not to engage in the negativity, instead redirecting the focus toward dialogue and understanding. The next day, as Amara prepared for work, she received a call from her firm. Mr. Henderson's tone was urgent. "Amara, we need to discuss a potential media opportunity. The local news wants to interview you again about the rally and the ongoing conversation surrounding racism." Amara's heart raced at the thought of another opportunity to share her message. "I'd be happy to do it," she replied, her determination solidifying. "This is important, and I want to keep the momentum going." "Great. Let's meet in my office to discuss strategy," Mr. Henderson said. When she arrived at the office, Amara felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. She wanted to ensure that their message was clear and impactful. As they mapped out the key points for the interview, Mr. Henderson reminded her of the potential risks involved. "Just be cautious, Amara. You know how sensitive people can be about these topics," he advised. "I understand the risks, but I can't shy away from the truth," Amara replied, her voice firm. "This is about more than just me. It's about the impact we can have on our community." As the interview approached, Amara felt the familiar rush of nerves, but she was also fueled by a sense of purpose. She was ready to confront the challenges ahead, to continue advocating for justice and equality. When the day of the interview arrived, Amara sat in front of the camera once more, the lights brightening the room. She felt a surge of adrenaline as she looked into the camera, ready to share her story. "Thank you for joining us today, Amara," the interviewer began, her tone welcoming. "Your message has resonated with so many people. Can you tell us about the rally and what it meant to you?" Amara took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. The rally was an opportunity to amplify voices that often go unheard. It was about standing up against systemic racism and advocating for change. We need to confront these issues head-on, and I'm committed to doing just that. As she spoke, she felt the weight of her words. They were not just for the camera. They were for everyone who had ever felt marginalized or silenced. She shared her experiences, her determination to continue the fight, and the importance of solidarity in the face of adversity. The interview concluded with applause from the crew, and Amara felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. She had used her voice to advocate for justice, and she hoped it would inspire others to do the same. But as the days went on, the tension with Karen Matthews continued to build. Karen, feeling threatened by Amara's increasing visibility, began to mount an offensive campaign against her. Amara could sense the storm brewing on the horizon, but she refused to back down. One evening, as Amara was reviewing documents for an upcoming case, her phone buzzed with notifications. She opened her social media to find that Karen had posted a video response, attempting to discredit Amara and downplay the rally's significance. In the video, Karen stood in front of her lavish home, her tone condescending as she dismissed the rally as a manufactured outrage, and claimed that Amara was simply seeking attention. Amara felt her blood boil as she listened to Karen's words, the blatant disregard for the issues at hand infuriating her. "That's it," Amara muttered to herself, determination coursing through her veins. "She wants to play this game? Then let's play." Amara sat at her desk, her laptop screen illuminating her determined expression as she prepared to respond to Karen's video. She couldn't let Karen's dismissive remarks undermine the work she had done or the movement she had inspired. The stakes were too high, and Amara understood that this was more than just a personal conflict. It was about a broader fight for justice and equality. With her fingers poised over the keyboard, Amara began to type. "Karen Matthews, your attempt to belittle the voices of those who gathered at the rally is not only misguided, but deeply harmful. The outrage expressed by the community is real and valid. This isn't about seeking attention. It's about demanding the respect and equality that everyone deserves." As she crafted her message, Amara reflected on the importance of her words. She wanted to convey strength and resilience while also inviting dialogue. She continued, "Instead of dismissing our experiences, I urge you to listen and reflect on why these conversations are necessary. Racism is a systemic issue that affects us all, and it's time we acknowledge that." After reviewing her response, Amara pressed post, feeling a surge of adrenaline. The moment she hit send, a mixture of anticipation and anxiety washed over her. She knew Karen would retaliate, but she was ready to face whatever came next. Within hours, her post garnered a wave of support, with people from all walks of life chiming in to back her stance. Comments like, "Thank you for speaking out," and "We need more voices like yours," filled her notifications, fueling her determination. She felt a sense of solidarity with her community, a reminder that they were all fighting for the same cause. However, it wasn't long before Karen struck back. She released a series of tweets attacking Amara's credibility, questioning her professionalism, and framing her as an angry activist who was out of touch with reality. The backlash intensified, and soon, Amara's social media feeds were flooded with a mix of support and vitriol. Some accused her of playing the race card, while others rallied behind her, demanding justice. As the online conflict escalated, Amara felt the weight of the situation pressing down on her. She had anticipated challenges, but the intensity of the backlash was overwhelming. It was as if Karen's words had opened a floodgate of prejudice that sought to drown out her voice. Determined not to be silenced, Amara decided to take action. She reached out to a few trusted friends and colleagues, including Lisa, who had been a constant source of support. "I think we need to organize a community meeting," she suggested. "It's important for us to come together and discuss these issues in person, to create a safe space for dialogue." Lisa nodded, her expression serious. "That's a great idea, Amara. We need to show that our community stands united against racism and that we won't let Karen's words divide us." They quickly set to work, reaching out to organizations and community leaders to gather support for the meeting. Amara felt a renewed sense of purpose as she watched people rally around the idea. The community meeting would not only allow them to address the issues head-on, but also serve as a platform for others to share their experiences and stories. As the date of the meeting approached, Amara felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She knew that Karen would likely show up, determined to disrupt the proceedings and undermine their message. But Amara was ready. This was her chance to confront Karen directly and to stand firm with her community. On the day of the meeting, the local community center buzzed with energy. Amara arrived early, setting up the space and arranging chairs in a circle to foster an atmosphere of inclusivity and openness. As people began to arrive, she felt the warmth of their support enveloping her, a reminder that they were all in this together. Once the room was filled, Amara took a deep breath and stepped forward to address the crowd. "Thank you all for coming today. This meeting is about more than just one incident. It's about creating a safe space for dialogue and understanding. We need to confront the issues of racism and discrimination that affect our community." The crowd responded with applause, and Amara felt a swell of hope. She introduced several speakers, community leaders, activists, and individuals who had experienced racism firsthand. Each story shared added depth to the conversation, illustrating the pervasive nature of discrimination and the urgent need for change. As the meeting progressed, Amara's heart raced with anticipation. She knew that Karen's presence loomed in the background, a potential storm waiting to disrupt the gathering, but she refused to let fear dictate her actions. This was a space for healing, for unity, and she would not let anyone undermine that. Just as Amara finished introducing the last speaker, the door swung open, and Karen strode in, her presence commanding immediate attention. The atmosphere shifted, tension rippling through the crowd as people turned to see her enter. "Is this a pity party for the oppressed?" Karen sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. "I didn't realize we were handing out participation trophies for being offended." Amara clenched her jaw, feeling the familiar anger rise within her. "This isn't a pity party, Karen. This is a meeting to address serious issues in our community that affect real people. Your dismissive attitude is exactly the kind of behavior we're trying to confront." Karen's eyes glinted with malice. "Oh, please, spare me the lecture. Everyone here is just looking for someone to blame for their problems. Why don't you take some responsibility for your own life instead of playing the victim?" The crowd murmured, some expressing shock at Karen's blatant disregard for the conversation. Amara stepped forward, her heart racing but her resolve unwavering. "This isn't about blame. It's about understanding and acknowledging the systemic issues that contribute to racism. Your comments only serve to perpetuate the very cycle of discrimination we're trying to dismantle." Karen laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that echoed in the room. You think you're some kind of hero, don't you? But all you're doing is creating more division. You're not promoting understanding. You're fostering resentment. Amara felt the anger bubbling to the surface, but she took a deep breath, reminding herself of the purpose of the gathering. We can't have an honest conversation about change if we aren't willing to listen to each other. This isn't about division. It's about coming together to create a better future for everyone. Karen's expression hardened, and she stepped closer to Amara, their faces inches apart. You're just a lawyer trying to make a name for yourself. You don't care about the community. You care about your own agenda. The tension in the room escalated, and Amara could feel the heat of the moment. This is bigger than me, Karen. This is about everyone who has ever felt marginalized or silenced. I won't let you undermine that. Suddenly, a voice broke through the tension. Enough! It was Lisa, stepping forward to stand beside Amara. We're here to have a constructive conversation, and Karen's behavior is unacceptable. If you're not willing to engage in a dialogue, then maybe you should leave. Karen's eyes darted between Amara and Lisa, her expression a mix of disbelief and anger. You think you can just kick me out? I have every right to be here. You're right, Amara interjected, her voice steady. But we also have the right to create a safe space for our community, and your actions are making that impossible. The crowd murmured in agreement, and Amara felt a surge of support from those around her. Karen's facade of confidence began to crack, and for a moment, she looked uncertain. I'm not going anywhere, Karen said, her voice low and defiant. You can't silence me. I'll be back, and I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what you're really about. With that, she turned on her heel and strode out of the community center, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. Amara felt a mix of relief and frustration wash over her. Karen had stormed in, attempted to derail the conversation, and left without engaging in any real dialogue. As the meeting resumed, Amara felt a renewed sense of purpose. Thank you all for your patience, she said, her voice steady. This is exactly why we need to have these conversations, because there are voices that seek to undermine our progress. We must remain united and committed to our fight for justice. The crowd erupted in applause, and Amara felt the warmth of their support enveloping her once more. The moment had been challenging, but she had stood her ground. In that shared space, amidst the stories and experiences, Amara realized that they were all part of a larger movement, and together, they would continue to fight for change. The atmosphere in the community center was electric after Karen's abrupt departure. Amara felt the energy shift back to a place of unity and determination. She could see the resolve in the eyes of those around her, a collective understanding that they were part of something bigger than themselves. This was not just about her confrontation with Karen. It was about standing up against the systemic issues that plagued their society. Let's continue, Amara said, her voice steady and strong. We have a lot to discuss, and I want to hear from all of you. Your voices matter, and together, we can create a movement that promotes understanding and change. As the meeting resumed, various community members stepped forward to share their experiences with racism and discrimination. Each story painted a vivid picture of the struggles they had faced, the silent battles fought daily, and the courage required to stand up and speak out. Amara listened intently, feeling the weight of their words, and she couldn't help but feel honored to be part of such a resilient community. Among the speakers was an elderly woman named Ms. Johnson, who recounted her experiences growing up in a segregated neighborhood. We've come a long way, but the fight isn't over, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. It's up to our generation and the ones after us to ensure that what we fought for is not forgotten. Amara nodded, feeling a deep connection to Ms. Johnson's message. It resonated with the very essence of her advocacy work. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Your story is a reminder that we must honor the sacrifices made by those who came before us. We owe it to them to keep pushing forward. As the meeting drew to a close, Amara felt a sense of camaraderie that she hadn't experienced before. The community had rallied around her, and together they had created a space for dialogue and understanding. It was a pivotal moment, one that would serve as a foundation for future efforts to combat racism and discrimination. After the meeting, Amara was approached by several attendees who expressed their gratitude for her leadership and courage. "You're making a real difference," one young woman said, her eyes shining with admiration. "Thank you for standing up." Amara smiled, feeling the warmth of their support wash over her. "This isn't just about me. It's about all of us. Together, we can create change." As she packed up her things, Lisa joined her, her face glowing with excitement. "I can't believe how well that went. We need to keep this momentum going. We should organize more meetings and workshops to educate the community." "I couldn't agree more," Amara replied, her heart racing with possibilities. "We have to build on this energy and create actionable steps toward change." Just then, Amara's phone buzzed with a notification. She glanced at the screen and saw a message from the local news station. They wanted to feature her and the community's efforts in an upcoming segment. Her heart raced with excitement. "This is a great opportunity to amplify our message," she said, sharing the news with Lisa. "Absolutely. Let's make sure we highlight the stories shared today. It's important for people to see the real impact of racism and the need for change." As they discussed their plans, Amara felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were building something meaningful, a movement that could inspire others to join the fight against injustice. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Amara worked tirelessly with Lisa and other community leaders to organize workshops, educational sessions, and outreach programs. The media coverage had brought attention to their efforts, and the community was eager to engage in conversations about racism, privilege, and understanding. However, Karen's presence still loomed in the background. She had not gone quietly, and Amara had to prepare for the inevitable backlash. Karen began to mobilize her followers, using social media to spread misinformation and paint Amara as a divisive figure. The vitriol intensified, and Amara braced herself for a potential confrontation. One evening, as Amara was reviewing plans for the next community event, she received a call from Mr. Henderson. "Amara, I think we need to discuss how to address the fallout from the media coverage," he said, his tone serious. "I'm listening," Amara replied, her heart racing. She could sense the tension in his voice. "We've received some complaints from clients about your public statements. They're concerned about the firm's image and the potential backlash," he continued. Amara felt a wave of frustration wash over her. "My public statements are advocating for justice, Mr. Henderson. If we're not willing to stand up for what's right, then what are we doing?" "I understand that, but we also need to consider the business side of things," he replied, attempting to balance the conversation. "Perhaps we should think about issuing a statement that distances the firm from the controversy." Amara took a deep breath, trying to steady her emotions. "I won't compromise my integrity or the message we're trying to send. If the firm wants to distance itself from me because I'm advocating for justice, then maybe I need to reconsider my position here." The silence on the other end of the line was palpable. Amara could sense the weight of the decision looming over them both. "Let's meet tomorrow to discuss this further," Mr. Henderson finally said, his voice more subdued. After hanging up, Amara felt a mix of anger and determination. She had fought too hard to let anyone silence her now. The fight for justice was far from over, and she would not back down. The next day, as Amara prepared for her meeting with Mirpiran, And she reflected on her journey. She had faced adversity at every turn, but she had also found strength in her community, in the voices of those who had come together to advocate for change. She refused to let fear dictate her actions. When she arrived at the office, the atmosphere was tense. She met with Mr. Henderson and several senior partners, each of them wearing expressions of concern. "We want to support you, Amara, but we also need to protect the firm," one partner said, his tone measured. "I understand that, but I won't be a part of an organization that prioritizes profits over principles," Amara replied, her voice steady. "This fight is too important to compromise." Mr. Henderson looked at her, a hint of respect in his gaze. "We understand your position, but we need to find a way to navigate this situation without losing clients. Perhaps we can reframe the conversation." Amara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision. "I'm willing to work with you, but I won't let you silence my voice. We need to make a public statement that reflects our commitment to justice and equality." The room fell silent as her words hung in the air. Finally, Mr. Henderson nodded. "All right, let's work on a statement together. We can address the concerns while still standing firm on our principles." As they crafted the statement, Amara felt a sense of empowerment. They were taking a stand, and she was no longer fighting alone. The support from her colleagues was a reminder that change was possible when people came together. Days later, the statement was released, emphasizing the firm's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. It acknowledged the importance of addressing systemic racism and encouraged dialogue within the community. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with many clients expressing their appreciation for the firm's stance. As Amara continued her advocacy work, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The community rallied around her efforts, and together they organized events that brought people together to discuss racism and promote understanding. However, Amara knew that the fight was far from over. Karen continued to rally her followers, attempting to undermine Amara's efforts at every turn. But Amara refused to let fear dictate her actions. She was committed to standing up for what was right. In the weeks that followed, the community's momentum grew. Amara and her colleagues organized workshops, town halls, and educational programs that reached beyond their immediate circle. They partnered with local schools and organizations to create a curriculum that addressed racism and promoted empathy and understanding. As the movement gained traction, Amara began to receive invitations to speak at conferences and panels, sharing her story and advocating for change on a larger platform. She felt a sense of responsibility to represent her community and continue the work that had begun so many months ago. One evening, as Amara prepared for another speaking engagement, she received a text from Lisa. "You won't believe this. Karen is planning a counter-rally next week. We need to be prepared." Amara's heart raced. "A counter-rally? She's not backing down." "We can't let her intimidate us," Lisa replied. "We need to show up and stand our ground." Amara felt a mixture of determination and dread. "You're right. We'll organize our own event to counter hers. We need to show that our voices are stronger together." On the day of the counter-rally, Amara stood alongside her community, their voices united in a powerful chorus of support and resilience. As they marched through the streets, she felt an overwhelming sense of pride. They were standing up not just for themselves, but for everyone who had ever faced discrimination and injustice. As the rally unfolded, Amara took to the stage, her heart pounding with excitement and determination. "Today, we stand together to confront hatred and ignorance. We will not be silenced, and we will not be intimidated. Our voices matter, and we will continue to fight for justice." The crowd erupted in applause, and Amara felt the energy of unity and determination wash over her. She knew that their fight was far from over, but in that moment, surrounded by her community, she felt a sense of solidarity and hope. They were not just fighting against one person, but against a system that sought to silence them. Together, they would continue to re-advocate and demand change, knowing that their voices could no longer be ignored. With renewed strength, Amara led the march forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united in their pursuit of justice and equality. You've made it to the end. If you enjoyed this story, I am confident that you'll love the next one appearing on the screen now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and please give this video a like. I'll see you in the next one.